Hey, it's Sam, and I'm here to talk about the new moon that's happening at the very edge of Virgo on October 15th. Very early in the morning, October 15th. This will be a very important new moon. It's happening at the very edge of Virgo, but it's really going to be more about the cycle of Libra because it's happening at about 29 degrees, 28 degrees, 29 seconds of sidereal Virgo. It's in the nakshatra of Chitra, and then a couple days later the sun is going to move into Libra, and we'll see that cycle of Libra unfold. So new moon together, the new moon is when the sun and moon come together, and it'll be at the very edge of Virgo, so there'll be this quality of details and paying attention to organization and organizing things in the best way, and yet it's going to have a strong theme of relationships because for most of the cycle it's going to have the sun in Libra. When the sun is in Libra, it's what's called debilitated, and this is because the sun is about our individual power, and it's at its least confident in Libra because Libra is where we're trying to accommodate others' needs equal to our own. So this is really the beginning of that cycle. And within that, though, because it's happening at the edge of Virgo, we'll be paying strong attention to the details and what others say, because it's ruled by Mercury, and also just how everything is arranged in our life and how we can maybe accommodate other people, their needs, and their ideas into our life. So very interesting cycle that's coming up. And so with the sun going into Libra very soon, in the next couple of days on like the 16th, at the end of the 16th, late in the day on the 16th, that will usher in that era or that month of accommodation of others being the most important thing. So when sun and moon come together, that's the initiation of cycle. It's like sperm meeting the egg, you might say, and then there's this whole cycle that occurs until they come together again, and the halfway point in that cycle is the full moon. We tend to pay a lot of attention to the full moon, but that's really the halfway point in the cycle. So we're starting the Libra cycle, but it's happening at the very edge of Virgo. Now, it's in the nakshatra of Chitra. Chitra is ruled by a deity called Vishwakarma, which is the divine architect. He's the one who built the visible universe, the universe we see. All of those details you need to pay attention to organize and maintain such an orderly universe. And it is. There's this whole thing in the West about how life is chaos and it's all chaotic, and this chaos theory and this whole kind of thing that really fuels a certain existential angst in the West. It's especially started since the 20th century and our sort of disillusion with, the perfection of science. We thought science was going to give us a more humane world, and instead it caused world wars and all this stuff. And so this whole kind of chaos, angst, existential angst really pervaded the 20th century, and there's this whole kind of way of thinking that the world is chaos. It's a sort of chaotic universe, and it's really not at all. In fact, the universe is very orderly. In fact, it's so orderly that when something happens outside the norm, it gets our attention. Like, for instance, if there was truly chaos, if the universe was truly chaotic, then anything could happen at any time. The laws of physics, the laws of the universe would be violated constantly. But in fact, that's not what happens. Everything operates within very, very narrow, specific, measurable parameters. And we see that all the time. I mean, just the very fact that you're sitting on a ball that's spinning 1,000 miles at the equator, going around this gigantic ball of fire, 70,000 miles an hour, that didn't happen overnight. It took a long time, and life forms and everything operates within very predictable parameters. Otherwise, people would just kind of float off and suddenly appear, and people would be born with arms on their nose, or anything could happen. But that's not the case. That's why we're so bored most of the time. One of the biggest problems with life is we're bored, and there's so much complacency. I'm saying this because Vishwakarma is the god of who is the force that creates this perfect, this perfect symmetry of the world, the glory of the genius of creation. And it's really just an amazing phenomenon when you think about it. Chitra is the nakshatra where we can really appreciate that orderly, beautiful universe. And it's also, when you're looking at the dasha sequence and the correlation to the planets, there's a correlation to Mars with Chitra nakshatra, which shows that sort of structural, mechanical nature. And Chitra literally means brilliant and precious, and it's related to gems and gemstones. So there's this kind of beauty, but yet tangible beauty that happens in Chitra. So this is a big energy for the next month as well. And then the other thing that, there's a few other things that are important to note. Jupiter is now retrograde, so this is a time in general where we're reflecting upon our long-term sense of meaning and hope and principles. This, Jupiter and Taurus cycle is very much about putting our teachings into practice in tangible form, not just abstract, conceptual, I believe this, so it's somehow meaningful. Beliefs are important as a point of origin to actually changing our life. So Jupiter is really about belief and the sense of meaning and hope that comes from our belief and those principles. But it also can be very ungrounded and can just be very philosophical and very dogmatic. So Jupiter in Taurus is compelling us to put those things into practice. And rather than just believe that we're doing something by having some belief and having it sort of just concentrate our material or our tangible existence. It's not a very inspired placement, actually. It can be very materialistic. So we have to be careful of spiritual materialism and greed with Jupiter and Taurus, and laziness. It's certainly a possibility. And with Jupiter retrograde right now, we're really reflecting upon those things. So put your teachings into practice rather than just sort of expand some philosophy you have about the world and allow that to just kind of expand your comfort zone. We could be expanding our comfort zone, you might say, at the expense of authentic growth. We also have Saturn and Mercury in Libra, and this is a very good placement for both of them. Saturn is exalted there because it gives us the capacity to really be humble and not feel humiliated in the face of relationships, because we tend to, the problem in relationships is our individuality is at a low point. It's what I said. The sun is debilitated in Libra because the sun is the glory of our individuality. Saturn, however, is elevated in Libra because Saturn is where we tend to feel humiliated, or we tend to feel that we've made a mistake, or we feel the pressure and the burden of our errors. So when Saturn is in Libra, we tend to reach out to others. We tend to not feel so unconscious or self-conscious about making mistakes. So this is very good. It also shows a willingness to work hard and preserve the connection that we have with others, and also, equally so, the willingness to realize that a situation or a connection is not working, make peace with that, and let go of it. Walk away from it. Because that's also a very powerful Saturn, is knowing when to let go of a connection that's not working. So Saturn is how we deal with time. And most of the things that get us tangled up in the lower qualities of time is our engagements with other people. We spend too long in a situation, not just romantic relationship, but some kind of connection with others, or we don't spend enough time, we're not willing to make a commitment to it. So the truth of this is what we're working on for the next couple years with Saturn and Libra. Mercury is there right now, which brings a lot of intelligence and creativity and flexibility into that situation. So we're willing to look at our own mistakes with more humor and with more variety and less charge, you might say. And so, Saturn Mercury in Libra is definitely a very creative place for business as well. So it's a good time to extend your business relationships as well because Libra is very much a sign of commerce and of interaction and wealth and bringing beauty into the world. So these will be big themes the next month, because the sun is about to go into Libra. And we also have this Rahu-Mars conjunction in Scorpio around, Mars is around 12 degrees Scorpio. So this is a time when we're really working on our inner insecurities and trying to really strengthen our emotional fears and insecurities. Mars, Rahu, and Scorpio. And that also can, show some difficulty with how much we're willing to compromise at times with others. This is also affirmed by Venus in Leo. Venus is at 20 degrees Leo, and it'll be there for another, 10 days or so, which also has us very, aware of our own personal power and not necessarily looking to give it away so much until we feel appreciated. So this placement is very good for sharing affection, sharing attention first. If you want to feel appreciated and respected, respect and appreciate others first. Be the first in that. And again, the problem with the sun is that we want to be first. Like, first appreciate me, then I'll give it back. This is the problem of the sun, and it can be a problem of the sun in Libra. But instead, be the first to appreciate someone else and see what comes back. So it all depends on how it works. So these are some ideas about the upcoming month. And now I'll do a forecast for my gold members, where I talk about each of the astrology signs through this matrix, through this cycle.